Welcome back to the channel. This is Wes. There are a lot of comic book readers out there searching for alternatives to DC and Marvel Comics. Obviously, you have Image and some of the other independent comic books that you can look at, but manga is really the perfect alternative because if you like some of the bigger characters like a Superman, Spider-Man, Incredible Hulk, there are actually really good analog versions within manga itself. And here talking to me about that is Tim Lim. How you doing, Tim?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for having me on again, Wes.
Well, I'm glad you could make it. Now, you are a lifelong comic book reader, but you also kind of switched over to manga once you kind of got fed up with Western comic books. And you're a comic book artist, so this is in your wheelhouse.
It kind of is. I mean, I'm a newbie to the manga and anime scene, but from what I've seen so far, I've really liked and enjoyed it.
If you like great team-up books like X-Men and Avengers, My Hero Academia is just waiting for you to discover. You get elements of other cool comic book superheroes like a Captain America in there as well. My Hero Academia is almost like the perfect transition manga for Western superhero fans.
It is. I mean, whenever I'm talking to people who are used to Western comics and they want to dip their toe into manga but don't know where to start, you're going to want to start with My Hero Academia because they're going to have a smorgasbord of everything that you're looking for. If you're looking for an analog for Captain America, for example, you're going to get it in the character of All Might. He really embodies that character. Same thing with any type of team title. If you like the Avengers or X-Men, essentially that's what you're getting in that book itself. And so if you think back to like Claremont era X-Men, where you have very definitive storylines that happen, whether it be like Fatal Attractions or like the Age of Apocalypse, or whatever it might be, you're going to find something similar in the way My Hero Academia flows. So it's very obvious My Hero Academia takes a lot of its inspiration from Western comics.
If you're a fan of Superman is being treated terribly by DC Comics. Nobody wants to buy the comic book anymore, but there's a perfect manga waiting for you to discover. It's called One Punch Man. Obviously, a lot of these also have animes out there. I've watched the anime myself. Really interesting character. Not exactly like Superman, Tim, but there definitely are a lot of similarities.
So One Punch Man was my introductory manga at the point where I was kind of fed up with what I was looking at in Western comics. But the general story of One Punch Man is, what do you do when you are the strongest character in your world? You always have these people who say that Superman is a boring character to write because he's too overpowered. He's a man who can literally do everything and anything, and he only has one weakness. So you'd better hope and pray that you have the one thing that you can use to defeat him or to stop him. Well, in One Punch Man, it's like they're playing on hard mode because it's like, well, what do you do when you have a man who can not only beat, but pretty much kill anything with one punch? And so the writer has found very clever ways of kind of defeating that tired defense of, well, Superman's just a boring character because he's too overpowered. It's not necessarily an all-ages book in the same way that a Superman title is. There's definitely more violence in it. But I would say that if you're used to any title that's a PG-13 level, I think it's a very good entry point for anyone who's at that age or older.
And if you're tired of Lois, there's no Lois in this book, right?
Not yet. Not that we know of. I mean, there's some contenders, but they're taking their sweet time with that if they're going to address it at all.
Another solo hero out there that everyone loves, obviously, is Spider-Man. He's in a lot better shape than Superman and in the X-Men and the Avengers right now. But there's also a really good My Hero Academia spin-off series called Vigilantes that is the perfect analog for Spider-Man. If you like that teen superhero flair that you get with Spider-Man, where he makes mistakes, but he always kind of gets back up and does the right thing, My Hero Academia Vigilantes, what's going on there? Why should people read that one?
Maybe it's just an age thing, but I actually like Vigilantes better than the main title for My Hero Academia. My Hero Academia is good in terms of how it relates to superheroes, but if you're in that position where it's like been there, done that, seen that before, then I think that My Hero Vigilantes is the natural alternative to it that might be a flavor that's more palatable to maybe older readers. So in the My Hero Academia universe, you're a minority if you actually don't have an ability or a quirk. But what happens if you don't have a quirk? If you read My Hero Academia Vigilantes, you have a character who is essentially the Deku character, and his ability is he can glide on surfaces at a very slow speed. He is not at the position where he can be like a registered hero, but he just thinks to himself, yeah, but I think there's a lot of things I can do, like deal with purse snatchers. So he ends up becoming a character named the Crawler, and he's an unregistered hero, so he's a vigilante, and he teams up with a guy named Knuckle Duster, who's essentially a stand-in for Batman and the Punisher. The guy has no abilities whatsoever. He just wears a mask over his face and has 2 brass knuckles. And he goes out every night and he just tries to beat up bad guys with no abilities whatsoever. but they work in tandem with each other, trying to take down the bad guys, but also escaping the registered heroes who are actually looking for them, and in some cases trying to take them down because they pose a threat to I guess the status quo. So that's where the Spider-Man analog comes in. Think of it as like Peter Parker trying to not only have to deal with the Sinister Six, but also some of the heroes, and J. Jonah Jameson always telling the public that these people are menaces.
There might be no character in comic books, at least in Western comics, being treated more poorly than Wonder Woman right now. The classic heroine, but she still has some femininity. At least she did when she was popular. Wonder Woman, everything cool about her seems like it's been stripped away. If you're looking for a Wonder Woman type series, I do believe Sailor Moon might be what people are actually looking for something a little bit more in line with old school Wonder Woman that they really enjoyed back in the day.
This is one of the ones where people might be rolling their eyes and thinking, I don't see the connection between Sailor Moon and Wonder Woman. But if you look at it superficially, it makes a lot of sense. Take the quintessential idea of what Wonder Woman is. She is basically an emissary from a foreign land who is suddenly put into the world of men, and she has to adjust to it. But at the same time, she's also a character that's supposed to epitomize womanly beauty, but also some of the underlying strengths of femininity. And she has her own like weapon that she uses with the lasso of truth, and she's supposed to be representing like a higher ideal. She's not only an emissary, but she's a goddess to a lot of mortal men. And in that same way, you have Sailor Moon, and in the character of Usagi Tsukino, she is a reincarnation of the moon goddess, and she's from the Moon Kingdom. And she finds out that she is put into the world of mortals, and she has her cadre of people surrounding her, the Sailor Scouts. She has her own weapon that she uses in her tiara. She has to kind of contend with this reality of, well, I'm here in the world of mortals, but I have a higher responsibility and people look up to me. And it's no wonder why, because she kind of epitomizes the ideal of femininity and strength and beauty all in one character. So again, that might be a little bit of a stretch, but as far as like an analog for superheroes is concerned, there's a reason why Sailor Moon has remained popular all this time.
Absolutely. Another thing that's been popular in the past, but just doesn't really have it right now, is the quintessential family book, the Fantastic Four. They just dropped the ball so hard. But there is a great family book in manga that probably does it even better right now. Spy Family. I know a lot of people are on the bandwagon about this, but if you're into that type of family style superhero comic, Spy Family is definitely something you should check out.
I mean, back in the day, whenever you had the Fantastic Four, or you had like the Marvel family over on the DC side, the idea of a family dynamic working together to basically do everyday slice of life problems or to face bigger threats from like supervillains. In modern Western comics, it seems like a lot of people have trouble writing the family dynamic. Now, there are people who are a lot smarter than me who can opine on the sociological reasons of why that might be. The writers themselves don't have families, or because it's such a foreign concept to them. Who knows? All I can say is that of all the books that we've listed so far, Spy Family, or Spy X Family, if you're looking at the title, is probably the one book I can recommend wholeheartedly. It is a pretty much all ages friendly book. There is some violence in it, but it's nothing more violent than what you would probably see on a Saturday morning cartoon. But it does capture the family dynamic of three people who are caught in a really strange situation. Now, here's the twist. Neither of them knows what the other person does. To top it off, they have a daughter named Anya, and Anya is a telepath. Now, Anya knows what the two of them do, and she thinks it's the coolest thing because it's like, oh my gosh, my adoptive parents actually have really cool jobs. But on the other hand, they don't know that I'm a telepath. So you might be thinking to yourself, well, okay, the dynamic doesn't quite work because the daughter knows what the two of them are doing. But then they throw another wrench into it because they adopt a dog, and the dog is a clairvoyant. So the dog can actually foresee the future. The telepath, Anya, the kid, she has no idea that the dog can do that. You have all of these moving parts that's happening, but they're still able to retain this family dynamic despite the fact that they're not a biological family. They're a completely artificial family, and yet they act and they relate more as a family than what you get in a lot of comics where it seems like there's a lot of dysfunction and whatnot. That is probably the number one recommendation I have on this list. And as far as people wanting to get into manga that is of any age, I think that that's probably the highest recommendation that we have to offer.
The manga people should be searching out, if you like The Incredible Hulk, is Kaiju 8. This is actually probably the best manga I think I've actually read. I am newer into manga. I haven't read as much as you, but Kaiju 8 is just absolutely brilliant.
Kaiju 8 is great because so a lot of manga, they focus on shonen, which is basically like young boys manga. So there's some tropes that are attached to it. If you're familiar with Naruto or Dragon Ball, they typically have a younger protagonist. They typically go through like a training arc. And on the other end of things, you have seinen. Seinen is for older adults, typically like college level and above. So it's unusual because like Shonen Jump, they put out this manga called Kaiju number 8. And it has effectively a seinen protagonist. He's not your typically like dreamy, somewhat androgynous looking like male hero. This guy is burly. I mean, he's a tough dude.
He's a bear.
He's a bear, and this guy's the whole plot is they live in this world where there's kaiju that run around, and so there's a dedicated team of people, and their whole task is to take down kaiju and then clean up afterwards. He's on the cleanup crew. That's how it starts. But some of his friends, they're actually on the crew of people who fight the kaiju, and he's like, man, these people are so cool. I'm going to try and take entrance exams and get myself bigger so I can join them, but he just doesn't pass muster. Until one day, he's bonded with a kaiju. Now, he does not turn into like this full-size, like skyscraper-size kaiju, not at least initially. What happens is that he can't explain how it occurs, but he's able to transform into like a miniature kaiju and take them out. And that's where the name Kaiju number 8 comes from. There's a lot of introspection in terms of like, what is it that triggers it? How do I measure up as a man that has to suddenly deal with this? And do I conceal it? Do I tell my friends? Do I come out to the world? Because I know if I do, they're probably going to come after me too. It's just great. That one is another really good one that I guess Wes and I can both recommend because we've both read it in great detail. Lot of action, very fast paced. The art is phenomenal. It's fantastic. That's a really good one for a reader who is really big into action-driven storylines.
There is no better deal in comic books than the Shonen Jump app. I think it's $2 a month. I've got my subscription. I go in there and I check those things out, and I'm just blown away by some of these stories. Glad that we got to cover some of these here today with my good friend Tim Lim, artist on Comic America. If you do not know, Comic America Volume 6 is available right now on Indiegogo and Kickstarter. They're doing a dual campaign at the exact same time. What should people know about this Kickstarter, Tim?
It's fantastic. We're really happy with the readership. We're just growing by every volume. With the launch of Common America Volume 6, I mean, we did phenomenal numbers. It's our best launch to date. We were able to cross 100K in under 24 hours, and we had more backers in the first day than any campaign previously for a first day launch. So we're doing very well. As Wes and maybe familiar listeners might know, we always take the money and we put it into the next book. So I'm almost done with Volume 7. I'm about 6 pages away from completing it at the time of this recording. But probably the most exciting thing about Volume 6 is that we have translated our whole back catalog of books into Japanese. Our number one readership has and probably always will be America. But for a while there, it was Australia. There's a lot of Australian comic book readers. But recently, as of this year, Japan has now grown to our second largest group. And so we're answering their requests. They would love to have a translation for Common America. So this whole year, we've been working on that translation. Now we got it. The best part is, for anyone listening who is interested in learning Japanese or wants something that is in Japanese so they can compare it to the American translation, every copy of Common America, whether you get it in digital or physical, automatically comes with 2 translations at no extra cost. So if you come into Volume 6 at the $5 level, you get a 64-page PDF in both English and Japanese. No extra charge. So we're really happy with where we are right now. We're happy with our Japanese readership, and we're really happy to see Common America go international and be embraced by the country that in a lot of ways inspired Common America and has brought it to where it is today.
Definitely want to say congratulations to Tim, Mark, and the entire team behind Common America. Huge success. I also want to say, if you want to learn more about what's different or maybe what manga is doing than Western comic books right now, I do have this video kind of breaking it down. What is manga doing better than comics? What can comics learn from manga right now? If you don't see it here, there's also a link on the video description.